This entire triangle came about after a quote on Zach Hill on Facebook saying that their Valakut decks had destructive force in testing, and as awkward and inconsistent and controversial as that strategy is towards Valakut as a whole, that's what they tested for. That was their mistake. And for some reason, everybody believes that this triangle existed because of this interaction. Now, that's the only piece of evidence we actually have from R&D, from my understanding, as to how this triangle came about. Excuse me. So, what I'm going to say is that either this triangle that people have created is either incomplete or untrue. What I mean by this is that either, well, for example, look at the past. Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't the control decks the one that beat the aggro decks? And the aggro decks were the ones that beat the combo decks because they couldn't interact with them? And the combo decks beat the control decks because they overextended? Yeah, I think that's how it worked. So, in order to convince me in this present day that it works the exact opposite way because you said so, doesn't really fly. And also, I actually don't believe that R&D would only test for such 3 small intricacies in the entire standard format as well. In order to believe that there's only 3 pivotal cards, you would have to convince me there's maybe a third of the card pool that's available right now. So, yeah, I'm going to say this is untrue or incomplete because we don't know if Tezzeret had a major role in this standard format that, according to them, or Tempered Steel, or White Weenie Aggro. There's a lot of different options that people have in this current standard format environment, which you can see. Like, you see they're pushing Elves, they're pushing White Weenie, they're pushing Soldiers, like, but everybody says that it only worked around those 3. So I'm going to say that's wrong, just to clear that up. People are irritated playing about it. They don't like seeing it, and whenever someone plays a Seachrome Coast, I sort of sigh, and whenever I play a Seachrome Coast and someone's against me, they just sigh. Like, it's like the most inevitable doomsday, like, thing you can ever do in standard formats right now. So, it's dominating. Its percentages are higher than Affinity by like 13% across the board in top 8s, and even though there's more top 8s now than there was back then, I don't think that's really an excuse to let this slip under the gun there. So there's very vital pieces about Caw-Blade that I think need to be spoken about towards the issues of banning them. About this, it doesn't matter if you're playing Stoneforge Mystic or Jace or Primeval Titan or Infernal Titan or Avengers Zendikar or Emrakul or whatever. It's gonna get countered. It's gonna get stopped, and because of the tempo and investment that you put into it, you're gonna lose the game on the next turn. It's like, I've never seen someone play a Jace, get it mana leaked, and then won the game afterwards. It just has never ever happened. So. This card's really format warping. It's the most versatile answer towards everything in the format. It stops your instants, sorceries, creatures, planeswalkers, enchantments, and artifacts. And that's a lot to ask of one spell. Compare that to something like Negate or Spell Pierce, where they have a restriction, like non-creature. And that actually allows a lot of room for aggro decks to push. So Mana Leak actually hurts the aggro decks from ever thriving more than Valakut does. Hard to take in, but I actually think that's true. Stoneforge Mystic is the card that really has defined the meta in so many ways. It's one I personally love to bits because it saved me a lot of money. Like, pre-release, I was just like, hey, I got this Abyssal Persecutor, you want to trade for like your 10 Stoneforge Mystics? And yeah, people did it, so it was really, really, really awesome. I think it's the best card I've ever seen in a long time. I was saying, like, I'm gonna go get my jitties with this guy. See you guys later. Yeah, it was a really format warping, dominating, powerful card. The format right now is so warped around Stoneforge Mystic that people are even putting cards like Dismember in, and that's really saying something, that they'd rather lose 4 life just to make sure that that uncounterability just doesn't happen. Stoneforge Mystic really has a big bullet on its head right now, and I think someone needs to really pull the trigger in R&D that Stoneforge Mystic does need to be banned in Standard. It's too powerful, it's too meta warping, and it catches your silver bullets. It allows blue-white Caw-Blade to be as flexible as it doesn't really need to be, and it's detrimenting the format towards your viable options. The other card I want to talk about here is Preordain. Now, Preordain allows for a large, high amount of consistency to happen in the format. And it's interesting to note because I've asked this theoretical question towards my local gaming stores before, and I've asked people around there, like, oh, okay, well, would you keep a 5-land 2 Brainstorm hand? Would you keep a 5-land 2 Ponder hand? Now, think about keeping a 5-land 2 Preordain hand. Now, I've gotten more yeses towards the Preordain hand than the other two. Now, as good as Brainstorm is, I'm sure no one's ever kept a two Brainstorm 5-land hand. That's really pushing your luck. But with Preordain, it actually allows this very unskillful consistency to happen in the format. Like, for example, the 5 lands, you cast your Preordain. Oh, there's spells on top. Okay, keep those. Oh, there's lands. Shove those away. And the exact opposite. You have 5 spells in your hand. You cast the Preordain. Oh, there's lands. Okay, I'll get those. It's unskillful, largely consistent, and it profits people for just playing blue for the sake of doing it. Now, compare that to something like Lightning Bolt. That takes a lot of skill to actually properly determinedly use based on the context of your deck and its construction. But to say that Preordains just is more mindless than Lightning Bolt, I think is true. It's going to be hard for people to accept, but I actually think that, based on my observations, that's really what's happening in Standard right now. Last card I want to talk about is Squadron Hawk. Now, Squadron Hawk has had a very large impact on the format, and Brian Kibler has advocated it ever since its beginning. So, for example, we all know it's already a tremendous upgrade towards Wall of Omens. It attacks, it flies, and it draws you more cards. Now, the whole card drawing aspect I thought was supposed to be nerfed, right? Like, as in, not as powerful it was in the past, like, not like a Fact or Fiction. But, for example, take this. You have Jace's Ingenuity, which is a 5 mana instant, and it says draw 3 cards. Now, remove 3 mana, turn it into white, draw you 3 cards, and have flying evasion as an evasion mechanic and the attack power on it, and you draw just as many cards. I don't really understand how this actually slipped through. Having Pack Hunt attached to anything has always been a problem, and we've seen this with Mercadian Masks block. I don't know. White doesn't deserve this. Like, white's a really cool color and all, and yeah, it should cantrip once in a while with Renewed Faith or something, or Wall of Omens, but this is a little bit ridiculous. It's a legacy staple, great card, amazing, probably the best card they've printed in a decade. It's pushing the limits. But I actually don't think it's format warping. It's not as format warping as Mana Leak, at least. And it's definitely not as powerful as Stoneforge Mystic. And the initial impact is definitely not as strong as Squadron Hawk. But it does all those things eventually. Which I think is a very good argument, but I think it's the only argument that they have. Because price tag should not be an issue. Availability should not be an issue. And it never has been. So I think banning Jace is the wrong idea. Because by banning Jace, you're ruining any possibility that Tezzeret has of exploring the format. You're getting rid of any possibility Venser has of exploring the format. And if you get rid of Jace the Mind Sculptor, you're getting rid of Blue's consistency in order to destroy other decks like Valakut or aggro decks to find their Day of Judgment. So I think you can't ban Jace the Mind Sculptor. What I do think R&D should ban is Preordain, Squadron Hawk, and Stoneforge Mystic. The entire Caw-Blade shell needs to die. And when I mean die, I mean like roll over in their grave, like over and over and over. So they should all cease to exist. And the reason why I save for some of these is because even though it sucks for white winnie aggro decks or whatever that deck that actually really doesn't exist to not have these utility spells anymore, only hurts them and doesn't hurt other multiple archetypes like Rug and whatnot. So, but by banning Preordain, you're allowing the decks like Rug and Tezzeret and Splinter Twin as of recently not to immediately take over as the throne of Standard. We may even see a resurgence of cards like Wall of Omens and Spreading Seas, which would be great because they're amazing cards, but nobody's playing with them based on the fact that there's higher cards that give a larger amount of consistency. So that's my response. Hope you guys like it, and I'll be hoping to give you guys more videos soon. Okay, bye.